If I may have your attention, please. Call the Oliver Springs County Council February 15th to order. Roll call, Joe.
Robert Miller, Jeff Bass.
Here.
Kenny Brown, Teresa Van Hook.
Here.
Terry Holland.
Here.
Becky Devaney.
Here.
We have 4 out of 6. We got 4.
Okay. Mr. Joe, would you lead us in one prayer, please?
Our Father, we thank you for the opportunity to gather together here in this museum. We pray that you would bless this meeting and bless this museum as it presents the history of this area and our black neighbors. And we pray that you would give us wisdom as we work here tonight to help us appreciate the past, to work here in the present, and to move into the future. We pray that you would be with our nation as we go into an election, all the states and local governments. We pray that you would give us godly men and women that would lead us as elected officials and in the government itself. We pray for wisdom tonight. We thank you for the saving grace of your Son. We ask all these things in thy Son's name. Amen.
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 Attention, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a motion to approve the minutes from February 1st.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Any corrections that anyone knows?
I think if Larissa's name is not spelled correctly, though, that would be the only correction. You can figure out the correct spelling.
Okay. Anybody else? Roll call, Joe.
Jeff Bass,
Yeah.
Teresa Van Hook,
Yes.
Terry Holland,
Yes.
Becky Devaney.
Yes.
Pass.
This time, is there any delegation from citizens who'd like to come up and speak? If so, come forward, state your name.
My name is Cecil Crow. I live at 720 Darty Road here in Oliver Springs. We've talked several times about cleaning up Kellytown. You know, we've got cars, we've got boats, we've got travel trailers, we've got weeds, you know, to go up. And I'd really like us to take a look at getting that area cleaned up. I know they said we've had some of the people down the circuit court, but we can still take them to our local court, you know, and see if we can get them to move a little bit.
Okay. Very, very well noted. Chief, let's go with Mac tomorrow and see what we can do to help this situation.
Yes.
Anyone else? Mayor update tonight. Just want to say this is a historic night in our town's history, and I want to say thank you for everyone who's in attendance tonight. And we have a rich history with our African American brothers and sisters that dates back a very long time. And so some people talk about building a bridge or moving forward, and others make it a reality. And so tonight I hope that you all know that this is a mayor that I love our community, I love our heritage, and I want to move forward, right?
Thank you.
And listen, I can't go back and erase the past, but what I can do is learn from the past and make sure that those mistakes will never happen again, at least not under my watch, right? So I say thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you, Mayor, former Mayor Cecil Crow, for being here tonight and showing support. To the council that's here, thank you. And so with that being said, just a couple of things. So I have said multiple times that this is a new era for our town. And let me give you an example. The last 4 years, TDOT reimbursement, they will reimburse us up to $39,500 a year for services that we contract with them for us to do. Well, under Corey and our administration, that $39,000 will almost be tapped out by the end of this month into next month. The 4 previous years, according to the previous city manager, that number was only around $3,000 to $4,000 a year. So we left $35,000 on the table every year that the state could have reimbursed us, but did not. That's no longer acceptable. And I want to say thank you, Corey. Thank you, Wendy, who has really oversaw the invoicing the state for services that we have provided. So I want to say thank you for that. The water loss rate continues to go down from 78%. Now we're down to 58%. So in roughly 8 months, we cut it 20%. Again, just being good stewards, right, of taxpayer trust, taxpayer money. So I want to say thank you, Corey, for that. And also, with that being said, last night I get a text message from a citizen here in town that says, hey, I want to say thank you for your city manager calling me and personally helping me with an issue after hours. David Call was the gentleman, and so he had a water issue, and Corey walked him through, I guess, 30, 45 minutes and got the issue resolved. And again, I've said it multiple times, leaders lead, and so thank you for doing that. Really appreciate it. And as always, I want everybody to know right here is transparency. There's accountability right here. There's integrity right here. And I am thankful that the public entrust those characteristics to myself, along with, I don't know if anybody's noticed, in City Hall there's a new emblem or new sign in Everything Excellence. So with my personal business, that is my motto, period. That doesn't mean that I'm perfect. That doesn't mean that the town is perfect. But we're going to strive to be excellent in all things. At least for my 4 years, we will strive to be excellent. And it's in City Hall, it's at the police department, it's at the garage. And so I appreciate Chief Laxton taking that role on to get those signs or made for us. It's a touch class. So thank you for that. So if you get a chance, check them out at City Hall. With that being said, Corey, it's all you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd like to thank the members of the Tri-County African American Cultural Museum for hosting this event and for the work that has been done in the community. Carmichael Park work, kind of work list we went over the last meeting, electrical upgrade, CUB's making those upgrades, new poles, wire, and transformer. Electricity will be ran to the existing pavilion where fans, lighting, and multiple outlets are to be installed. Tree trimming and removal along the roads and parking, road upgrades. I believe this has already taken place. There was about 22 tons of gravel that was delivered a couple of weeks ago. And our street department has already been up there and leveled all that out. Drain and ditch work to route the stormwater away from the roads and the ball field. And a frost-proof water spigot will be installed at the pavilion. A new gate installation, kind of using the natural boundaries like we've talked about. New gate will be installed, moving back about 15, 20 foot from where it's currently at now. There'll be a hill on one side, there'll be a ditch on the other, kind of used, and we might put the blocks and everything in. And then we'll end up fixing the park entrance, paving the junction between Fritz Lane and the entrance to the park. And finally, the new Carmichael Park will be installed. Street department update, remaining paving jobs, we've got Tri-County Boulevard, Breeden Lane, Henley Circle, 2nd Norway and Green Street. Potholes patched since the snow and ice event, 34 holes that's been patched. And just to recount, the snow and ice event from January the 15th through January 23rd, Total cost of $24,550 to the town. One big thing here, I will notify council about your current job openings that we have. Your Parks Director, your Library Director, Utility Director position, a Human Resource Director / Officer, and 2 Street Department positions. So we'll go ahead and post those positions on Monday. Pay will obviously be based off qualifications, so we'll try those interviews as soon as we possibly can. Another item, we want to revisit Arrowhead Park, softball and baseball field use fees. So I've talked with the Booster Club and the Youth Club. We're looking at charging an event fee for someone coming in and hosting softball tournaments, baseball tournaments. Baseball field, probably look at a $200 to $250 per day. Now, the baseball field would be after high school baseball season's finished. Now, the softball field is a different story. Softball field 1 and 2, looking at $100 to $150 per day. And then a field usage fee for teams to practice on. So baseball field would be a $30 per hour. Your softball fields would be a $15 per hour. Now, your exceptions to that, there would be no charge for the Auburn Springs school sports and in your youth clubs.
Oh, yes.
So that's one thing we need to take up probably at the next meeting.
So let me
Oh, yes.
add to that. The reason that that is needed is in years past, we've had organizations who use our fields, and we want them to use our fields. However, they're getting the use of the field for free. They get free electricity, they get free water, they get free sewer, they get free maintenance. When you look at the totality of it, if you only had one event, it's not that big of a deal. But when you're having 4, 5, 6 events, and the city is having to foot the bill for each one of those events, you're talking thousands of dollars over the course of a year, if not even tens of thousands of dollars. And we're not here to make a profit, but we need to try to help cover the cost and be good stewards, right? So that's what the use fee is for, if anybody is wanting to know. So Corey, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
we've talked about this before,
yes.
and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but the TVA restrictions for Olive Springs to use that park, when TVA gave us permission to use the park, said we cannot charge an admission fee. Whether or not a usage fee for the ball teams, for the ball fields, will fall in that category, I don't know. But if we charge and collect several $1,000s over the course of the season, and somebody complains to TVA, and TVA gives us an opinion that we can't do that, guess what we'd have to do? So, and again, I know you don't want to hear this, but an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And, you know, I don't have the answer, black and white. And if you want to be on the safe side, you would see if TVA would give an opinion as to whether or not a usage fee for the ball fields would be proper under the TVA restrictions and guidelines when TVA allowed the town to use that property. So I've said enough.
Thank you. No, Corey.
Charter changes. Gave you the charter at the last meeting. Do you have any suggestions, recommendations, questions about that so far?
Some of it's really archaic.
It is very,
Very.
What's a Jenny?
which one that's?
I don't know, it's in there. A Jenny. What was a Jenny? Okay.
I think it's a female.
Yeah.
That's a Jenny.
Mayor,
Okay. I don't think that's probably applicable today.
Right.
Just use some of it, just needs to be reworked.
Yeah.
Most definitely. And hopefully, probably March, we'll have the list that we want to bring before council. So if you have anything that you want to bring or want to address, right?
Yeah, we got to see your mayor about it.
Yeah.
You guys could probably use some watch that.
Yes. Yeah. Financials, if you want to look at your First one, is water and sewer fund. January meter sales were down. I think there were maybe 29 billing days in January. Now, the February bill showed 34, but that is just a software glitch. The actual number of billing days was 33. And due to the snow and ice storm, we couldn't read meters for, 2 days later than usual. Total revenues for January was $207,478.54. Starting on your back page is your expenses. Now, anything highlighted, wouldn't be a red flag, some of these are just missed codes that we've got to move to, mainly the contractual services. A lot of these are your GRW and community development invoices that can be covered under your capital projects. Another big thing would be on your repair parts for your water and sewer line, which I've already made the adjustment on your forms. That 17,000 was in the supplies under transmission distribution. So we went ahead and made that adjustment to the repair parts. Again, you've got 105,000 budgeted for that. And that's going to be one of your higher budget items. Go ahead and look to the last page. For January, $10,162.32. Revenues over expenses for the year, and for the year, you are $235,464.72. Revenues over expenses. So reconcile that to cash. If you look at the very bottom line, you should have right at $987,883 in your water and sewer cash account. Now, keep in mind that there's $385,000 of that is the ARPA fund that has to be taken out and put into its own account. So still, you've increased your cash position from the beginning of the year from 487 to roughly 610,000. Second sheet would be your State Street aid. That's what you receive from your gas tax. If you look January 24, big things, your expenses, your capital outlay, that's where you purchase a lawnmower at the last meeting, or actually the December meeting. Currently, in the State Street aid, you should have $143,963.75. Go ahead and get to your general fund. So again, big thing, starting in October, you start receiving your property taxes. So looking at January, property taxes was down $53,843 brought in. February should be a big month, because that's when your due dates for property taxes are. Get to the back, well, the bottom, kind of what the mayor was talking about earlier, 110-34-313, that's your street maintenance contracts, your TDOT contract, budget $39,500. So far this year, we've received $27,825 with a $15,000 invoice currently turned in for the expenses during the snow event. Total revenues for your general fund on the back page for January is $269,406.93. Then you get into your expenses. Page 4. Under your police expenses, under contractual services, $30,227.75. There was what that was your police department camera monitoring and the multiple cameras in the cars. And then it's a once a year fee. $42,200 on page 5, make sure it's in the dollar budget. Highlighted in yellow under office supplies and materials, it was a $6,700 expense there. That should be under a capital. So again, some of this stuff is just miscoded. It's something we can clear up fine.
What is the $6,700 for?
The reporting software, the reporting software.
Yeah. Page 6, rather straightforward. 7 is the same, we'll just go ahead and jump to your back page, page 9. Total expenses for January was $240,404. Total revenues for January was $269,407. Give you a $29,003 revenue over expense for January. Your year to date is $48,500 revenues over expenses. Any questions about the finances? Performance services, Brian Stone is here. I'd like to bring him up right now to give this presentation. At the last meeting, I gave you guys a report. I've got a few copies if you don't have yours when you look through these.
Yeah, I can.
You done. You can swear you can go right in.
Right here.
I appreciate it. I'm Brian Stone. I'm with Performance Services. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to look through that at all for the last couple of weeks, but for the last couple of months, since about September, October, I've been working with Corey on trying to figure out how we can do 3 things really for Oliver Springs. And one would be how to make more operations more efficient, so save you on your operating budget. 2, how do we create new revenue streams that don't impact your citizens, your taxpayers? And then 3, how do we help you reduce the unaccounted water loss? And so on our dime, at no cost or obligation to Oliver Springs, we put this report together. And I want to share a couple of things about it and what you would get, and then maybe how we can move forward after that. So we identified about 10 or 11 things within your current operations that we think will either decrease your operating costs, increase revenue without burden to the taxpayer or your customers, or reduce your unaccounted water loss. All of those things either pay for themselves or create excess funding. And so what we do as a company is we figure out how all those pieces can kind of fit together in a bundled project. And so you have some pieces that have really good return on investment. You have some pieces that have a longer return on investment. And so we figure out how to make those work within both the general fund, the enterprise fund, and then the total budget all together, if that makes sense. So I'll give you a couple of examples. I think it's on page 3 if you want to look through it at all, but a few examples, just as an street lights. We know they're not owned by the city. There's a process that you can go through that will eliminate about 60% of that street lighting cost while making them new LED. So you can get whiter, brighter, cleaner light, new LED lights, and still reduce that cost. So that one alone, I think, is about $40,000 a year savings. So we've identified a number. For example, the HVAC units at City Hall, those are well past their useful life. We quantify how much the energy savings are, how much the operating savings are, and how much the cost avoidance in the future. So one, you don't have to budget for it in the future if it goes out or if something happens. So all of those items, I think on that page 3, with the exception of the last one, the optional plate settler. And that one is a very large item. Corey can probably speak to that a little bit more knowledgeably than I can, but it would help the efficiency and help expand the capacity for the water plant. That one is a large piece. It's probably in the $2 million range. But what we wanted to do was at least figure out, is it worthwhile to invest the time in it? So we work in generally 3 phases. This first phase is this preliminary study, which we've done. You guys can review it, do whatever you want with it. If you don't want to do anything, I'll say bye and go back to Nashville. Otherwise, we can move into what we call the investment grade audit. And that investment grade audit doesn't require any money up front from you guys, but it allows us to go and develop each one of these pieces, go and get competitive bids from local firms, whether it's an electrician, carpenter, plumber, mechanical contractor, whoever it may be, and then come back to you with a detailed scope, a cost, and a return on investment, what kind of return you'll get. Another piece of it, just for example, we would investigate putting Wi-Fi in some of your parks. So you can put a cheap little node, it's not expensive, on top of your streetlights that projects free Wi-Fi out across the city at about a 500-foot radius. You can simply ask somebody to watch a 30-second video and you get revenue from it. So the city gets revenue by providing free Wi-Fi to your citizens, just by simply having them watch a 30-second video for a local business. So we would help implement those things. So these are the things over the next 90 to 120 days that we would actually develop out, engineer out, figure exactly how much it costs, figure exactly what the return is, and then come back to you and see how it fits in the budget, how it fits in your capital improvement plan or your plans overall. So this next phase, this investment grade audit, does not commit you to doing any of the items that we develop. Be clear on that. It doesn't commit you to doing the project. It simply gives us the authorization to go and do that work to figure out how much it costs to purchase. If at the end of that period, you want to move forward and implement some of those scope items with us, all our cost simply rolls into the project, which is covered by the return on investment. If you don't want to do any of the scope items, there's a $43,000 fee that you simply pay us to help us recoup our costs for the investment that we put in. Now, for that $43,000, I will tell you, you do get stuff. And I'll give you one example. We're doing a project in Livingston, and so we have the ability to, we actually have a drone that we can fly water and sewer lines, and using thermal imaging camera, we can identify leaks from underground water and sewer lines. She was in Livingston last week. I had her come out here and spend a day in Oliver Springs. So she flew zones 1, 5, and 7, I believe, for your zone meters, your water system. We identified 17 leaks. We identified 6 more on private property. We did not want to fly the drone over private property without authorization, so we could see them from public land, but we didn't want to go too far. So we identified a number of leaks. What we can do during this next phase is quantify those and then figure out a plan for how to fix them, how to fund fixing them, and how to figure out what kind of impact it would have. So you would get that information already as part of this. We've already also included what I called a little bit of consulting time to take what the rate study from Jackson Thornton is doing on the water side and the technical study that GRW is doing. We would help you pull all that together to submit to the state. So we'd make sure that that would be part of it. The other is we would do a couple of other strategies and provide not only immediate returns and implement some cost reductions and some unaccounted loss reductions based on some of those scope items. The last thing I'll say before I see if you guys have any questions. There were 2 items on this, flip one page to 4, I believe. The safety and security upgrades to City Hall and a new vehicle shed at the Public Works. We believe that the current scope that we identified will actually pay for both of those. So we think we've identified enough savings to fund both the safety and security upgrades at City Hall and that new vehicle shed at Public Works. So we do believe that we can actually fit those things in. So the way it generally works is you guys actually borrow money for it, you pay to do the project, and then we guarantee the return on investment. So we will actually put a financial guarantee on how much savings you generate, how much revenue the pieces that we implement are. So you use that savings and revenue to repay the debt. So it's literally no money out of your budget. It's simply reallocating what you would have paid for utilities or operations and simply putting that towards the debt service to pay for the project. So that's part of what we do, is we figure out how to have minimal impact on your budget, how to have no impact on your taxpayers or ratepayers, and help you get kind of necessary improvements. One of the things that we had talked about was trying to figure out if there's an idea, if there's a way to fit in a new public safety building, based on the police station, or even a whole new public works campus. So those are things that we can kind of talk about. One of the things that we included in the agreement was preliminary design for both of those. So we can actually go through and do some space programming, do some costing and budgeting to give you an idea for how much each of those projects would cost, so you can try to start planning moving forward. So there's some things that you would get as part of this next phase, even if you didn't move into anything else. So I'll kind of stop there, pause for a second, see if anybody has any questions, either about scope, how these projects work, or where else we're doing work, or anything like that.
So how did you spot the leaks?
So we have a drone, well, actually, she has 4 drones. We have an unmanned aerial vehicle pilot, her name is Anne Marie. She actually was out here, and I can show you some pictures, but she has a thermal imaging camera that sits on the bottom of the drone, and rather than having someone walk a water line miles and miles and miles, we can actually fly that drone over the water line and look for temperature changes on the ground. So we can identify where, if it's in the winter, the water is warmer than the ground. If it's during summer, the water is cooler than the ground, so we can look at different temperature changes. We did it last Thursday, which, if you remember, it was windy, but it was about a perfect day last week. So we actually had perfect weather to go out on those 3 zones, 1, 5, and 7, to look for temperature changes on the ground and where water would be. So it may not even be on the surface. It could be underground, leaking from the side of the pipe, but we can identify those. But what it's meant to do is to tell you where to go look, rather than just walking a line. You may not see water on top of the ground. This gives you a better way to kind of say, okay, I want to target this area to see if we can identify actual leaks or how to fix them.
How deep does the water line leak have to be before the drone cannot distinguish the change in temperature on the surface?
It can reasonably go down to about 6 or 7 feet. So the one thing that's bad, we can't identify leaks if it's under the pipe. That's the negative, is if it's on the side or bubbling up in some way, they're very easy. But if it's a leak going straight down, unfortunately, that camera, now what I will say is, part of also what we included in this next step is acoustic leak detection. So those 2 items are specifically identified for the water loss. So we actually have acoustic leak detection system that we can put down in your pipes. It pings a noise, sends a sound through the pipe, and we can identify if there's leaks, if that sound is escaping the pipe. So we actually included that in this next phase. And should you move on to the next part, we would actually either have an ongoing service to keep that going, to help you identify future leaks, or actually provide you the equipment and training so that all our Springs could do it yourselves. So we kind of look at it 2 different ways, depending on how many leaks we find, what the opportunity is, how much payback, how much the impact on water loss is. But that's what this next phase does. We can only do so much estimating and kind of budgeting from a preliminary assessment. So we did spend a couple of days here going through all the buildings, going through all everything, and came back out last night just for the drone. Does that answer your question?
Yes, but I have another one.
Sure.
The town does not have millions of dollars laying around that we can pay cash for this.
Wouldn't expect you to.
And you mentioned very briefly that the town would borrow money. From which private or government organization or agency would the town borrow money? How much would we have to borrow? And that would probably be dependent upon the projects we did. What would be the interest rate? What would be the length of the term? And you have indicated your company will guarantee that it will not cost the town any money over the long run because we can make the payments based on the savings. If we can't make the payments based on the savings, will your company have a bond or a bonding company that will step in and make the payments if your company cannot?
Yes, so we do have performance and payment bonds as part of every project. We have a financial guarantee that would be part of our ultimate contract.
But what I'm saying is, though, when you say bonds of every project, when the project is completed, those bonds are generally good for a period of time like a year, kind of like a warranty. what I'm speaking is if we borrowed $2 million to do all this over 20 years, and over 5 to 7 years of savings are not there, will you have a bonding company that's solvent that will pay the time?
Yes, sir. So we've been around for 26 years, 25 years now. We have, I can give you hundreds of examples that we've provided performance and payment bonds for the entire term of projects that we've done. Generally, once we go through this process, customers or cities don't require that because, one, after a few years of good, results, it's unnecessary or unneeded. But we've been around for 25 years doing this. We actually have just grown. We're in the process of growing even more. We're in 14 states in kind of middle America and across the Southeast. We don't work in the Northeast and we don't work in the West, but we're in middle America. To answer your other question, the financing, Tennessee statute, I believe it's page 12 of this. It's actually, there's a whole section in there about how these projects work, how they're financed, what statutes they relate to. So I put the specific statutes in there. There are specific statutes that govern these types of projects. And specifically, there are financial options that are only available for these types of projects. Now, I'll give you an example. One is called the tax-exempt lease purchase, and it allows you to borrow at tax-exempt rates, which right now is in the 4 to 5% range. Hopefully, that's going down. It's trending down at this point. But that's the tax-exempt rate now. We actually make sure that rate is held for the entire term. So whatever term it is, whatever the payback is based on those measures and the scope that we've included, we actually create, that's our term. So we put a guarantee, 1 on the cost, 2 on the return on investment. So our guarantee on the return on investment lasts the entire term for the payment of that debt, repayment of that debt. Our guarantee says if it doesn't meet the guarantee, if you, let's say we're going to save you $100,000 and 1 year it only saves $80,000, we actually write you a check for $20,000 to make you whole. So that's part of our kind of business, to provide a guaranteed cost, to provide a guaranteed return, and to help you not impact the budget. Now, that also to be said, those tax-exempt lease purchase are specialized financing. What it allows you to do is actually pay nothing for about 1.5 years, sometimes even 2 years, so that you can recoup that return on investment. You can actually get return on investment before debt service payments are due. So it's a specialized type of financing for this type of project specifically that allows you to get your return on investment before you have to repay the debt. Does that make sense?
What underwriter do you use for this?
It depends. So I'll be honest, in Tennessee, I've used a local bank for this time. So I had one county near Nashville do a project like this. They wanted to use their local bank. So they did just a traditional loan and used their local bank. I've used bonds. So we've sold we've had customers sell bonds for these types of projects. So obviously you're getting a lower interest rate. You're going to have to pay a little bit up front, but you may not be able to hold the rate for the entire term. You may only hold it for 5 years. I've had some that use the tax-exempt lease purchase, and you can hold a rate for the entire time. You can even renegotiate that rate after a certain amount of time if interest rates go down. So there's a number of ways that you can do it. Some have low interest rates, some have a little higher interest rate, but delayed payment. We are not municipal financial advisors. I want to be clear on that. All we do is give you the information. We can collect the information for financing options and financial options. We present it to you and say, we will not make any suggestions on how you run your finances, but here are your options on how to finance or pay for this type of project. But I want to be clear, that decision is after we figure out how much it costs, what the return on investment is, and what the scope is. So I wouldn't expect you or anybody to commit to any project, millions of dollars or anything like that, until you know exactly how much something's going to cost, what kind of return on investment you're going to get, and what is actually going to be done. So that's what this next phase is simply allowing us to bring that information back to this board and say, here are your opportunities. Here's the guaranteed return. Here's what you get for it. And you can make that decision in 90 to 120 days.
Raise your hand.
Could I ask a question?
Yes, Ms. Wood.
I've heard you speak about the leaks, identifying water leaks. Could you identify the springs in Oliver Springs, which is what it's known for, that we could restore the town of Oliver Springs?
So
You're supposed to have had 7 or 9 springs. Is that something that you could do and not necessarily on private property coming down the mountain or whatever, wherever?
I don't know, but I'm happy to get that answer for you. I know that the drone and those cameras are specifically designed to identify, surface leaks in the 6 to 7 foot range. I don't know if it would do that, but I'm happy to find that out and come back and answer that question.
That's a really good question.
That would bring the town on top of the mountain.
So here's a little history of Oliver Springs, obviously Springs. So back in late 1800s, early 1900s, we were the tourist attraction of the United States. Our depot downtown would bring in people from all over the country for the springs. And because I guess there were certain minerals, if I'm right, in our water, people thought they were healing properties, literally. So.
And like hot springs.
So to answer, short answer is I don't know.
But you could check.
The long
into it.
answer is probably.
Okay.
Assuming you know kind of where they are, if you have a general idea as to where those springs are,
I think Eddie Coker knows where they are.
Really?
we can probably help identify them. But I'll ask that question.
There's quite a bit of tourists comes through this area now,
Yes,
and that would really bring us up, Mr. Mayor.
it would. It absolutely would. It really would. It's a good question. Thank you.
How is it that you can determine the return on investment when you don't know what your financing is going to look like?
So we generally, what I did, and I'll be honest with you, I call Bank of America. Bank of America, who I typically use for tax exempt lease purchase a lot of times. It's not the only bank, but I go and say, hey, can you give me an indicative rate for this size project, this reasonable term, and this customer? And they say an indicative rate. So we use an indicative rate, I think of 4.5% when we're kind of estimating and figuring out. But that's kind of how we get it. Now, once we figure out the exact project, what we generally do is what we put out, what we call a request for financing. So if you have local banks, if you have national banks, and whoever you want to finance this project, we actually send them all the details of the project with cash flows and everything and say, would you like to make an offer of finance? We collect them and then bring them to you guys. Again, I'm not a municipal financial advisor. We simply provide that information to you so you can make the decision on what the best method is for Oliver Springs. But we use indicative rate. I call it an indicative rate for Oliver Springs. The good news is you guys don't have a lot of debt, so it helps.
Very good.
So again, this next phase, it does not obligate you to do a project, does not obligate you to implement anything. It simply allows us to start developing and engineering each of those scope items so that we can bring back costs and return on investment.
I would ask this question, you say the next phase doesn't obligate. You have said that if we select one or more of these projects to be constructed, your fee is woven into that, rolled into those projects, so therefore the town has a commitment. If we choose nothing out of your recommendation for whatever reason, the town has a commitment of $48,000.
43, but we did put in the agreement that it would not be invoiced until next fiscal year. The last thing I want to do is maybe do a budget amendment. So we would make sure that, one, it wouldn't be included in this fiscal year in any way. All that does is it helps everybody have a little skin in the game for these types of projects. We will probably spend a little bit more than that in developing and engineering and designing all these pieces. I thought that was a reasonable, so when I went through and added up the consulting time for the report from the state, the drone and leak detection, the acoustic leak detection, the preliminary design, when I kind of added up those things that you would get real value from, that's how I ended up on the $43,000. We ended up on the $43,000. So we'll spend probably a little bit more than that doing the lighting audit and making sure we design the mechanical and all those other things. But that's what I felt was a reasonable cost for the value you would get from this next phase.
Okay, this first phase has got like 11 components.
And one of them is a major optional. So that last one, that
So
place.
10 plus this $2 billion component for the plate settler, second plate settler.
And that's to help the expansion of the water plant.
What page you on?
I'm on page 3.
Phase 3.
Oh, okay,
Projects have phase 1.
okay.
So you'll notice we put a range. That's why there's such a big range, is that
Right.
it's about $2 million.
So let's say we decide that we're going to implement possibly 3 of these items.
Sure. So everything that we do and how we work as a company, we are fully transparent and open book. So you see every bid that we go out and get, you see our markup, and you see our overhead and profit. So you see all of those things when we come back to you. When I come back to you with costs, you'll see all of our costs, you'll see all our subcontracted costs, and you'll see all the project management costs as part of this. So you'll be able to weigh everything. What I would say is, I would look at, if I were in your position, and I don't want to assume anything, but if I were, you have a lot of really good return items, like the streetlights, like lighting, like the mechanical, that actually are items that will need to be done sometime over the next probably 3 to 5 years. Those are items that are real budget impacts that I would say they pose a good return on investment. I would rather do them before they have an emergency or something goes out. Take, for example, the HV system at City Hall.
Have you prioritized these?
No, ma'am.
These are not not in priority recommendations?
No, ma'am, but you can go back. So if you, all the way to the back, there's a table on savings for what certain pieces. What we did not do, there's 2 things on that last page is for solar. I don't generally recommend solar. The only reason I say it is part of the Inflation Reduction Act changed how solar is treated in cities, counties, and utility districts. Inflation Reduction Act changed it so that you can actually take a 30%, what they call a tax credit, but it's really a refund. So 30% of all solar that you put in, you get a direct refund back from the federal government. Literally, it's a check back from the federal government. So when you look at those things, not only are you offsetting the cost, the operating cost of the water and sewer plant, but you're getting 30% in a check back from the federal government for the cost of the solar. So it helps create the payback a little better. But no, they're not prioritized or, and then, oh, I'm sorry, the second page on that last one is where we did not quantify the value of the water loss reductions. So that was one thing that we kind of said, we're going to hold off on that to make sure we're accurate. So we can project based on your utility bills. So we collected your utility bills. We looked at your budgets. I pulled them from the state comptroller's website and all that. We went through every line item to make sure that we could readily identify what real savings might be there from these items. Again, we did not quantify the value of the water loss, reduction. We did not quantify revenue from, for example, the Wi-Fi, if we were to put Wi-Fi in parks or downtown, something like that. So we didn't quantify both of those things. And the only reason is we've got to do a little bit more investigation as to how much it would be used, how many times it would be accessed, and look at population density for a couple of areas in usage, just to make sure I don't give you unrealistic or unreasonable numbers. But that would be part of this next group of deliverables.
What kind of time-lag experiences have you incurred when a town votes or government votes to borrow money to get it approved by the comptroller's office and have your bonds issued or whatever it may be?
What kind
of time frame? Because if this council voted tonight to borrow several $100,000, you've got to get it approved from the comptroller's office.
Sure.
But to have it approved from the comptroller's office, you have to have your loan package with the lender and the interest rates, repayment schedules, term, etc. And last time the town borrowed money, it took, as I recall, about 3 months to get it approved, and it was a very simple loan.
The last time I did it was in November, and it took less than 30 days.
Which government?
So there were 3 that I've done in the last year. Each of them took less than 30 days to get.
Which government?
So Livingston's doing one, McMinnville's doing one, and there's one that I'll happy to tell you outside of public session because they want to
Okay.
keep some of them.
I'm not asking you to divulge any conflict of interest, but I'm just simply saying that on that other loan, I was calling every week asking, and the comptroller's office replied, it's in the stack to be done.
It's been my experience over the last, I've done this for 13 years now. It's been my experience that the longest I've ever seen the comptroller's office take is probably 60 to 70 days, something like that. I've never seen one go more than a couple of months. And generally, I will tell you, we've had Moody's, we've had S&P come in and talk to multiple customers. Usually they're bigger customers. They treat these types of projects very differently from a credit perspective. because you have a third party guaranteeing essentially repayment. You have a third party guaranteeing return on investment, guaranteeing your ability to pay the debt service. So generally, the credit reporting agencies look at these projects a little differently simply because of that.
So is the next phase, phase 2?
Yes, sir.
Is that when we're locked into the 43K?
Yes, but again, that is only payable if you don't do a project. And it's only payable after the next fiscal year. So I would never ask you to do a budget amendment for the next 5 months. I'm not going to do that to you. But second, you only pay that if you don't move on to the next phase. So we do it a little bit so everybody has a little bit of skin in the game, just so, you know, it's not my intention to do these studies. I would help you build and solve problems eventually. That's the ultimate goal. So these studies are simply the road to get to those solutions.
What if it took 3 years to get through phase 1?
So we actually guarantee implementation too. So that's part of working with one company with single accountability, with the kind of resume that we have, quite honestly. We estimate, with the exception of the plate settler, because that is a very large item, implementation of all those would probably take 6 to 8 months.
You've got these divided into phases.
Yes, sir.
Phase 1 has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 projects. Does that mean the council would have to approve all 11
No, sir.
projects of phase 1?
No, sir.
Okay? If we did the new interior and exterior LED lightings, the new air conditioning equipment, and the thermostats and the weatherization, which is the first 4, we don't have a cost on that in this estimate. And if there's a motion and second to hire you all to do this, and it comes in, I'll say higher than what council is comfortable with, we owe you $43,000. And I'm just, you know, because what I think of is that if we voted to do the first 3 or 4, what's the dollar cost that y'all are projecting in the savings and the cash flow? I would want to see that. And I mean, how does council vote without having hard dollar figures? I mean, it can. And I don't have to vote on council. but-
Respectfully, you do have a hard dollar figure of $43,000 for this next phase. I wouldn't expect you to make any decision, borrowing money especially wouldn't ask you to borrow money without full well knowing each individual cost of those items, each individual return on investment of those items, and each detailed scope of those items. Never ask you to do that. What I would ask you to do is allow us to go get that information.
What I'm saying, though, is that if we have the numbers for the first 4 today, say it totaled $100,000, then you're either going to borrow $100,000 and have it paid back out of the savings, and if you don't, you're going to pay 43. But say it comes back a whole lot more and town council's not comfortable in borrowing that, we pay $43,000.
Respectfully, this report was created at no cost.
I understand. I respect
Let me
that.
get there. But I can't go into that amount of detail for what I would consider a no-cost report.
I understand that.
So I can't give you that information. For this is phase. I can give you that in that next phase. I can give you all of that information down to the penny.
Yeah.
But right now, based on the evaluation, the preliminary analysis that we did, so we spent probably 70 hours, man hours, producing this report, both on site and going through public records and utility bills. This is what I can give you from a budgeting standpoint.
Well, I ask this question because these people have to vote at some point tonight or meeting in the future. And I wanted it to be clear that there's no dollar amounts, is what we're having to borrow, there's no dollar amounts to save. And to get that information, we have to commit to at least $43,000.
That's correct. So,
Here's the good thing, from where I'm sitting, it's not on the agenda to vote on tonight.
Yeah, I would agree.
And, you know, we can submit questions to him going forward that any council member may have, Corey, myself, you, and, you know, and that's what I would ask us to do.
so the last thing I would say, Mr. Rick, is I would ask to consider the value you get for 43,000.
Right.
Not the value of the unknown. Look at what you get for that 43,000. You get the location, longitude and latitude of at least 17 leaks that we've already identified. You get full scope and detailed engineering for all of those scope items so that you can either plan for the future, or you can not do anything, or you can move forward. You get help and consulting time in compiling the report due to the state, and you get a plan for how to address a crumbling shed at the Public Works Building, how to address safety security items at City Hall. So I would ask that you not look at what you don't get. I would ask that you look at the value you do get for that 43,000.
But the taxpayers ultimately on the hook when these people vote.
And ultimately, my hope is, and what I believe and what we put in this report, is that all of this cost would be paid out of the current budget without any additional money from the taxpayer or ratepayer.
That's what they get paid, $35 a month to decide.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
I've got a question.
Yes.
How do we distinguish how much the water department will cover on this and how much does the general fund have to cover on this?
Great. Can I answer that?
Yes.
So that's what we do. We actually specialize in figuring out, because as you know, you can't mix enterprise funds and general fund.
Right.
What you can do under the statute 12-4-110, whatever it is, it allows you to bundle projects. So when you have a bundled project that has scope items on both the water sewer side and on the general fund, you're able to spread the cost across to all of them. So we help you on the back end, once we develop all the scope items, to figure out what's the impact on the general fund, what's the impact on the enterprise water fund, so that you know exactly how your reporting is. The last thing I want to do is make your reporting difficult. So that's how this works. So we help you figure out what's on the general fund and what's on the enterprise fund.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Bass.
I'd just like to say, I'm happy to be out here tonight with good facilities that have done such a good job. Thank the police, the street, the sheriff office, all of them they've done the past couple of times. Going on.
Thank you, Mr. Bass. Ms. Stanhope.
I want to thank Mr. Stein for his report. Thank you very much. Also, I want to welcome Ms. Devaney over here to the council. And just say that we will take this report and do some due diligence. Thank you.
Mr. Hall.
For this, some people are just late putting their brush out. Is that something they have to wait till spring cleanup now to get done? I mean, I kind of see
I mean, it would probably.
they've made a big mess that did.
But I mean, if there were some extreme issues, I mean, we could take care of that. If it's kind of widespread, it'd be better to wait until spring cleanup.
Did we get the snow plowed off?
It's ordered, first year. Yeah. Have we heard anything from?
Talked to him yesterday, they should be here next week.
I know we had some big figures on the clearing of the snow and stuff. Did we get any reimbursement from the state of that? Or?
So we have submitted, we have to PDOT, I think it was around 15,000 folks,
Yeah.
that we're hoping to get reimbursed.
And that we've been working on stay on.
Correct.
Now, we have also applied for, I think, roughly $5,000 through FEMA for repair of water leaks during that time.
I always like to throw in the educational part of the TV. The new water meters, I noticed they actually have a GPM little portion at the bottom. So if you want to really be cost effective, watch a family member take a shower, you kind of do the math and figure out how much you're blowing. Or it is a good way to tell your leaks too, because it's actually accumulating. Then it goes back to zero, there's nothing really going on. And replace the red spin.
Yeah.
Let's get to know Mr. Hall. Thank you. Mr. Lane.
First of all, I'd like to thank you all for voting me in. I had Ms. Crow has stopped by and saw me at the office, and she brought to my attention that the Red Bud Park, that my understanding, my dad worked very hard to get that grant for, and it is apparently not being maintained. Can you tell me anything about that?
So when you say maintain, can you elaborate on that, Ms. Crowe or Mr. Crowe?
It was never finished.
Right.
Now it's broken. The little gazebo or the shed, it's been vandalized, it's falling down.
Okay.
The water fountains are broken, the lights have been stolen, electricity is gone. It's just, it's in bad shape.
The material they used was substandard. It wasn't meant for exterior, and it's fallen down out of that pavilion.
Okay.
The fountains were never finished.
That was a bad deal.
Some of the electrical was stripped out. It's really an eyesore. That's the one.
Corey?
Mr. Mayor, I think what happened is the grant maybe was for 15,000.
It's 30, almost 36.
Was it 30,000? Whatever it was, the contractor was paid in full and he did a little bit of work and disappeared and died or took bankruptcy or something. And the town just took a beating on it.
Okay.
So if the park is to be rehabilitated, it would have to be out of grant money that we haven't applied for, don't know of any grants offhand, or out of the budget.
So-
That's something maybe Corey can look into.
Yeah, me and Corey have discussed getting park grants, more park grants. So, and we will continue to seek more funding. And, but one day this coming week, let's get together, and we'll look at the park and start making a list about what needs to be done.
But one of the men died, and the other one filed bankruptcy.
Yeah, that's,
And what they did, what they started out doing was okay, but they didn't finish it, near all of it.
It was beautiful like 10 years ago, but it was very nice.
Anything else, Mr. Mayor?
I think that's it.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr. Brown.
Mayor, I got two things. One is I gave the councilman, our former mayor Keith Jamerson passed away January 29, 2024. He served as mayor from 1983 to 1985 and as city administrator in 1986. So he was an Auburn Springs High School graduate of 1957. And the second thing is that we have resolution number 2024-201 in recognition of the African American history of Auburn Springs. And I think the mayor has
Yes,
that.
I do.
And if you will sign it and present it to
Yes.
the officials at some point before the end of the meeting, then
I was going to do
we'll
that
finish this task.
for the new business side,
Yes.
so we'll do that here in just a second. So, last thing before we get to our police chief update, I will say, the last council meeting, I told you that, thanks to our city manager, I spent right at $35,000 on a new truck to help our town. My business, Big Orange Tree Service. That truck has been since delivered to my residents. I had some work done on it. And if we do have another snow event, rest assured that we will be out plowing and salting the roads in my own personal truck. So it's an honor to do that.
Is that a salt spreader or a brine spreader?
It's salt.
Salt.
Yep, it's a snow plow and salt spreader.
We got brine, have we bought salt?
We have, I think, 50 tons, 55 tons.
50 ton of salt, and we've bought, I think, close to 22 ton of the,
Chip rock.
yeah, chip rock.
Okay.
Yep. So, all right, chief.
The only point of business I have is what was deferred from tonight's meeting. I did me all, basically we have to do an annual review every year of our policies and procedures. What's missing, what needs to be updated. That was contained in the last packet. It was deferred to this meeting for more time to look it over. I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
We have a motion, we have a second.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Roll call, Joe?
Jeff Bass. Yes. Lisa Banton.
Yes.
Terry Holland.
Yes.
Becky Devane.
Yes.
Passed.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chief. Fire Chief is not here tonight. So under old, there's no old business, new business. The resolution that we have put forth, a resolution in recognition of the African American history of Oliver Springs, support of the Tri-County African American Cultural Museum, and support of Mamie Carmichael School Organization. It reads, whereas the town of Oliver Springs recognizes the significant contributions and rich history of the African American community within its borders, and whereas the Tri-County African American Cultural Museum stands as a beacon of preservation, showcasing the diverse heritage and achievements of the African American community in Oliver Springs, and whereas the Mamie Carmichael School Organization plays a crucial role in fostering awareness, education, appreciation for the historical importance of the Mamie Carmichael School, and whereas the town of Oliver Springs Mayor's Office and City Council demonstrates unwavering support for initiatives aimed at building, preserving, and promoting the African American history within the community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the town of Oliver Springs officially recognizes and celebrates the African American history ingrained in its cultural fabric, and to be further resolved that the Tri-County African American Museum, Cultural Museum, and the Mamie Carmichael School Organization are commended for their efforts in preserving and promoting the rich heritage of the African American community. And be it further resolved that the town of Oliver Springs Mayor's Office, and City Council affirm their steadfast commitment to supporting initiatives that contribute to the building and preservation of the African American history within the community. And be it finally resolved that the copies of this resolution be provided to the Tri-County African American Cultural Museum, the Mamie Carmichael School Organization, and made available to the public to underscore the town of Oliver Springs' dedication to fostering inclusive and historical rich community. Rev, you want to come forward and...
I think the president of BD2.
All right, Miss Julia Day. I have what I love to say. Rev, thank you.
Thank you.
Miss Julia.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I'll present this to you guys.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Turn around.
Yeah,
Let's make sure we get these classes.
for sure. Come here.
Here,
Rev.
Dad.
So, thank you, guys.
Stand by. Let me get my phone. I gotta do one more. Just quietly take pictures.
It's okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Miss Julia.
I just want to say that it shows that despite situation in the past and the way things turned out, that we recognize that we're brothers and sisters now.
Yes.
And we're going to celebrate this together. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, historical night tonight. Thank you so much for hosting us, being gracious guests. And at this time, without further ado,
1 minute.
I apologize. Last item of business, the approval of the Bureau Board minutes. Do we have a
Mr.
motion?
Mayor, I have included that in the original motion as the recorder's prerogative.
Okay.
And so the minutes will reflect that you all approved these minutes as well as the previous minutes.
Awesome. Thank you. There you go. Well, without further ado, all in favor, return to say aye. Aye. So be it.